So we have a few important figures here. Matt Bundy is here, Scott Turner is here, Clay Tucker is here, Jeff Schroeder is here. I saw him somewhere. Right back there. And Megan Fleischman. Did it. Yay! I did it. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen here. We have Vince Tromboli. Okay. Mark Wasdall and Matt Krisenbeck from ITD. And they will tell you what they do, and then you will be able to ask them questions.
So a little bit about what I do. I'm a community outreach coordinator, so I've talked to quite a few of you in this room, and try to give you the information that I have available to us. So any questions? You're always free to call me. I know my number's been passed around. And, if you want to call and chat, give me a ring. I'll let Mark tell you a little bit about himself.
Mark Wasdall, one of the district planners. My job tasks include project management, do a lot of that, design construction, and also environmental clearances. And we want to help out with right-of-way, and whatever needs to be done, gets done.
Mark's a jack of all. My name is Vincent Tromboli. I enjoy moonlit walks on the beach. No, I'm just kidding. My name is Vincent Tromboli. I'm the program manager for the Planning and Development Services at District 3. We're with the Idaho Transportation Department. District 3 is made up of the 10 counties in southwest Idaho. So all the counties are in, of course, the big counties to the south. I can usually say them all, but it might take me a little bit. But all the counties in the southwest area. And well, thanks for having us here today. We know that this has been something that's been talked about in this community for years, and the problem's only getting worse. You can all see that with your own two eyes. We see that with our eyes. We see that with our boots on the ground here with our maintenance forces, talking to us about the challenges they face at this intersection, and really in the whole corridor as a whole. And certainly we can look at the 3 traffic counters that are at that intersection and also see the increase and the growth and how it's impacted this intersection. So tonight, if you want to switch to the next one, our objective tonight is really to talk a little bit about the background here and also talk about where we're at right now, what's actually happening out there right now. We worked on and got a grant for a study, or a FLAP grant it's called. It's the Federal Lands Access Program. The study was actually done by Western Federal Lands. We participated in it mostly by providing information, but they did all of the analysis, using a consultant to do all the analysis, and we'll share that with you tonight. And we're also going to make a recommendation to our board coming up, and we'll also share information about that. I'll ask you if you could just let me get through this. It's going to take me 15 minutes at the most to get through this presentation. So let me get through this, and then, look, if you guys want to stay here until midnight, I'll answer questions. All 3 of us will stay here as long as we can or need to answer all your questions and all your inquiries. I always like to tell people that, you want me to be loud? Oh, there we go. Oh, that's better. Oh, there we go. We're your transportation department. We're the Idaho Transportation Department. We're for everybody in this room. And so, we certainly want to come up with an improvement at this intersection as much as everybody else here. And I think when we get toward the end of this presentation, you'll kind of see that we do feel like there's potentially a path forward, and we'll talk about those next steps. So quick background, major north-south highway, State Highway 51, but this intersection is unique. You've got 2 bridges, one local bridge, one state bridge. You've got a major county road, which was never intended to be a major county road. that comes into this intersection, which is, of course, Banks Lumber Road, which is the big part of the issue. You've got an ITD facility on the other side of the river where we do our maintenance from. You've got Forest Service land, you've got a recreational area there, so there's a lot going on in this intersection. And you can see the different types there. Highly seasonal directional traffic. In 2022, we flagged it 8 days. This year, we actually flagged it 10 days. I think 8 Sundays and 2 Mondays. Is that right? Something like that. But basically, the go-home days, right? Sundays and one is Monday. But I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, we started flagging the intersection only 3 times. And so we've increased that number, and we've worked with a lot of your community leaders. And if we need to continue to increase that number, we're willing to do that until a long-term improvement is found or built. We'll continue to do that as well. So we have observed and studied this quite a bit internally. There's been several different assessments or studies done, including the FLAP grant, which we really started working on late in 2020. We were supposed to start earlier, but then COVID happened, and there really wasn't the traffic out there to study during COVID. So we had to get through that, and a bulk of the traffic study was done this last summer. So we talked about the FLAP grant, all those agencies there combined on it. We talked about, this summer flagging May through September, and then we're going to bring a proposal to the Idaho Transportation Board for a signal coming up next week, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this. So that's kind of the current status where we're at now. So the FLAP study, the Federal Land Access Program study, we looked at 12 potential options right away. We said, what are some things that we can look at for this intersection? Tunnels, flyovers, moving traffic to the other side of the river. Of course, roundabout, signal, those are 2 things that have always been talked about. And so a lot of those were eliminated because frankly, there's fatal flaws in some of them, and they're very cost prohibitive. Tunnel, for instance, the cost of that, tunneling under a mountain, figuring out, where you would go when you're looking at, going to the other side of the river. You have to put more bridge structures into the river, some sort of, let's call it grade separated interchange there, which is similar to what you have on the freeway. It's just not that simple because you don't have the land and the room, and so the space. So we looked at these because these are the alternatives or the potential improvements that really fit with the context of what you have there right now. Stop control, which essentially is what you have when you don't have flaggers out there right now, which is the no-build, which whenever you do a study like this, you always want to look at the no-build because you want to know what you're comparing yourself to. So you take a look at what the current no-build is. Obviously, that's not the improvement that you're going to recommend, but you still want to look at it. Sometimes, actually, it does end up being where you stay because you look at it and compare it to other alternatives, and they maybe don't stack up. We'll talk about flagging, a signal, and a roundabout. So, stop control, I don't need to say too much here. I think you guys all know how this works. Probably works great on a Monday morning or, at midnight on a Tuesday. Flagging, or automated flagging, both were looked at. I know that flagging doesn't eliminate the issue, but the days we do flag, and I've driven through a couple Sundays this year. I came through the first weekend of August, and I ended up waiting a while, but that was because of a crash on the highway south of Banks. But we were 20 cars from the front, probably would have gone through no sweat. There were flaggers out there. But we do see good results with flagging. It's pretty adaptive. We can quickly make changes on the fly with the people on the ground. There's no reconstruction that would need to be done if we stuck with flagging full time. And we can, through people moving traffic, we can mitigate the left turns. We can make sure people can go left, whether it's left in, left out, or left into the Banks Grade Road, or left off of Banks Loman onto the highway. Any of the four lefts, really. But there are some significant drawbacks. The safety of flaggers. It's difficult to predict when flagging may be needed. I mean, we know the Sundays that we need to be out there, but eventually, I mean, flaggers will need to be out there more constantly. And there's a lot of traffic control that needs to be set up every time. And so then it doesn't become as nimble as, say, 5 to 10 Sundays a year. Right now, we can kind of predict what those patterns are like, but as it continues to grow, we'll just grow out of this opportunity to flag. And I will say, automated flagging is an option too. This study showed that it can probably work as well as regular flagging. Automated flagging is essentially an automated signal type of a flag, which would be controlled by a human who would be there, but it would just be one person. The thing with automated flagging, though, is we'd probably have to put some sort of an advanced warning system in place that we can turn on and off every time we use the automated flagger. Now, if we put in a signal, which we can talk about right now, we would need to put in an automated system. We would need to put in, an advanced warning system. We can accommodate future traffic demands. We can create capacity. But here are some of the cons to flagging, and it does partially come down to cost, a signal. You can't just put down a bunch of poles with the current configuration and walk away and say, this is going to improve it. It's not enough. You have to improve and increase capacity of that intersection. We would have to replace both of those bridges. They were both built in 1957. The study showed, and other studies have shown in our own inspections show that, there's some scouring issues on the pillars, the piers, I should say, in the water. The decks are in pretty good shape, but, we design bridges to have a 50-year life, and those obviously are beyond that life. So regardless, they will, in the near future, will need to be replaced at some point and be reconstructed. And then you also have both you've got to widen the area as well to fit that. So you're looking at both the north and southeast corners, which will probably have to do some work in the hillside. Going forward, next steps would be some sort of preliminary engineering, which would include materials testing and getting reports on the materials so we can really get some context for what a design might look like. We also looked at roundabouts. Now, in the very short term, roundabout would probably work, but it would quickly break, as we like to say. Essentially, it would get, there'd be too much traffic too fast, and with the growth we have, and we're looking at about a 3% growth rate. Thank you, sir. We're just growing way too fast, and that would break too fast. And one of the objectives of this whole study was to come up with what would be the best, or look at the best potential improvements. It's hard to say solution because this, full interchange is probably not a feasible solution, given all of the other challenges from a transportation standpoint that we have around the state. But it seems like, based on this study and everything else we've done, Matt, if you want to move it on, the recommendation we'll make here in a second, and then that came from the study as a signal. They looked at a couple of other alternative modifications. So what if we left it as is, but did replace the bridges and maybe only did a 3-lane bridge, then we could do left turn acceleration. One of the issues there is south of the bridge, you have a business, you don't have a ton of space, so you need time to merge with an acceleration lane. You need to merge with the southbound traffic, you turn left, you head south, and you would have a dedicated acceleration lane, but you would need time to merge with traffic, and it would still just be stop controlled. It wouldn't be a signal. We also, this is a modification that we'll probably use. It's called a zipper merge, and it's really just basically educating people how to merge more quickly versus taking your time to get over. It's just, you basically, I just zip right in, right? You ever heard, that's literally what it is. And a lot of DOTs around the country do a lot of outreach on this strategy to help people better merge onto a freeway system and use this zipper merge technique. So the study recommended the traffic signal as the best option. Here are some of the pros we've already talked about. Limited operational capacity with current road configuration. There is major reconstruction required. You'd have to replace the 2 bridges, widen prior to and through the intersection, turn lanes. I think we would probably try to go for 4 turn lanes, or right turn lanes on the north, south, east, right, Mark? And then you'd have all left turns. Left turn onto Banks Grade, left turn onto Banks to Loma, left turn off Banks to Loma, and so you'd have all your left turns. It has the greatest life of all the alternatives, good performance versus the other alternatives, but I did talk about we'd have to put in a significant advanced warning sign, or warning system and warning signs really, to help drivers understand what they're coming up to. Are there other things we can add to this? Could we sometimes have it flashing red and flashing yellow? Potentially, there are options like that. Those are things we would look into as a part of the process of the preliminary engineering. So this coming Thursday on the 21st, we're going to make a proposal to the Idaho Transportation Board to eventually add this to our ITIP, or our Idaho Transportation Investment Program. We think at this point the request would be for $40 million, and that's why it's been hard for the department, because over the last 10 years we've had a lot of priorities to balance. Thanks to the efforts of the folks over here, we have seen a tremendous increase in funding, and so something like this is definitely an option now. So we're going to make that proposal and see how the board reacts and see what ideas we get, and maybe we change a little, but certainly we're going to make a proposal for an improvement there. We have added $1 million into the program update to start the preliminary engineering, which would be what I've talked about a little bit already. We'll start some environmental work, look at the material itself, look at the hillside, do geotechnical work. I know everybody knows of our challenges on State Highway 55 in Swinis Ferry, and so we certainly need to really investigate all of the material in the area. We already started a type, size, and location study for the county bridge, for the Banks Grade bridge there. We had a little bit of money left over from this study, and to Mark's wisdom, he said, we know that to do anything there, we're going to have to replace that local bridge. So we're using the additional money there to start that report. And that was before we even decided to make this proposal to the board, but we just felt we knew something was going to happen there. Your county commissioners work hard, but that's a lot. A couple $100,000 is a lot of money in their coffers. So we had the opportunity to do that, and we worked with them and applied this money into that study. And we'll have to do a type, size, location report as well for the big bridge to start to determine, what some concepts would look like. So that's a lot. I don't know if that was 15 minutes, maybe close. I think that's it. And so now, like I said, we're here to listen. I didn't want to talk too much, but I wanted to set up what we studied, what we looked at, what we learned, share the proposal with you folks that live here in this community. And I know you all care about this community very, very much. I was here in 2018, and there was a lot of frustration in the room that day, and we said we were going to do this, study, and somebody said, oh man, another study? I think a lot of people said that actually. And unfortunately that study got slowed down, but we're back. We promised we'd come back, and we're here. So it's your chance now. I'll give you the mic and just come on up, or I don't know how you guys want to do this. Yeah, you got a roving mic, there you go. But before you go, Mark, is there anything like to add? Matt, would you guys like to add anything?
Just as Spencer was saying, that we have the feds will be doing, or scheduled to do an aircraft flight to gather the data on the riverbed and currents and scouring of the riverbed in order to decide what's the best design of bridge. I was hoping that before we came here, they'd actually have that scheduled. I haven't got a schedule from them yet, but they said they would do it this fall, and the report would be out spring/summer, so we're already working towards bridge replacement. There's been a fair amount of grant money for bridge replacement, so even before this, we were looking at having that information to go forward with grants. I know Boise County did receive a grant for replacement of the Gardena Bridge, so the money's there. We just have to have the background to go for it, and if we're going to do it ourselves, then we don't have to go through a grant program, or we might do it anyway and do money swaps, but definitely that is in motion. I'll stop right now.
Hi, my name is Debbie Fox, and I live in Garden Valley, so most of my travels is through that intersection and down into the valley. Can you give any statistics on the amount of, say, over the last 5 years, how many cars have gone off the road into the river?
So we did do a crash report for the intersection itself, and data from 2018 to 2022, 5 years, there were 6 crashes in the intersection. I don't know the specifics if any went off into the river or not, but I believe one of the 6 was a fatality. So in the intersection and a buffer around the intersection, there's, reported crashes, there were 6.
And so my concern is also, while it's the intersection, it's the drive down into the valley, and how many times we hear cars being towed out of the river or cars going into the river. There's crosses on the road everywhere. And in this $40 million proposal, does that include guardrail going down into the valley? And I'm only speaking to that one because that's where I drive mostly versus going up to McCall. But is that being looked at in some of the areas where we know cars have gone off to maybe put some guardrail in there to help keep people from going into the river? So that's
So guardrail and, further stretches of the corridor wouldn't be in that 40 million, but I don't know if Mark has anything to share on a planning effort wise regarding guardrail.
I didn't hear all the comment, but was it some other safety measures within the corridor?
Yes, going down into the valley at certain locations where we know cars have gone off. One, what were the stats of vehicles going into the river, and then not having a guardrail there.
Right.
The gentleman said that putting guardrail on the corridor was not part of the $40 million.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about, the project we would talk about wouldn't include anything outside of the intersection. I can say though that we do have plans to do some, really a corridor study between State Street, basically Boise, right, or Eagle, I guess, north. We're going to propose that to the board in the next couple of months to start a piece of that. And those are the types of things we'll be trying to identify within that study is within the existing right-of-way, what are the improvements we can make throughout the corridor. We do identify this as a corridor of need. We understand that there needs to be improvements in this corridor. We wish we could widen from stem to stern, but it's just nearly impossible. We saw how much it costs just to do not a lane widening, but a road widening, right? Improving some shoulders for a mile through Smith's Ferry. We do have a project slated in the program to replace the Rainbow Bridge in 29 right now. And we're adding some funding to that project as well. The proposal would be to go past the existing bridge and then over. We can't tear down the existing bridge. It's listed on the National Historic Register. And so, we'll leave it up as actually a monument area and people will be able to visit it, but I digress. But what you're talking about though, potentially maybe identifying some areas where we can put some guardrail, there's money in our program supporting infrastructure assets, or SIA. Essentially, it's for those types of projects, maintenance types projects, guardrail, tree clearing. We actually had a project in the program before what happened this June in the SIA portion to do some tree clearing. We've already started that. We jumped right on that. So there are some means by which we could do other corridor improvements, and some we've started. We're working with our maintenance forces in there to identify other places where we can make, improvements to the roadway and to the roadway area as well.
So does the planning that you're talking about, looking at in the court, looking at the improvements in the corridor, also include a lot of I think I read about the work that's going on at Attleboro that's going to be bringing people into the corridor from 16, Emmett, all of them. Does it include?
Well, like widening, passing lanes?
Just what the potential traffic's going to be.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, much like we did here with this intersection, if we do any planning effort, there will be, traffic study. But I think we all know that we're only going to see more traffic on this road. So, I mean, that's why we've identified the opportunity and the need for future planning, basically from State Street all the way to McCall, which will start with potentially, we're looking at Round Valley to McCall as the start, because there are some opportunities there for passing lanes and some turning lanes and those opportunities. So we are not an ostrich with our head in the sands. We do see the needs here, and we will work as quickly as possible to try to put solutions in place.
Good evening. I'm from Horseshoe Bend. I live at the intersection of 52 and 55. Dave is my name, Dave Vedder. And I read last year in the Idaho World, I believe about this time last year, they were going to resurface 55 from State Street to 2nd Street in Horseshoe Bend. Was that shelved? Was that a proposal? Is that happening?
Yeah. Sorry, we've struggled a little bit with putting together the package, the bid package on that, but it's out right now, and actually we opened that bid for that project in the next couple of weeks. We're potentially going to get money from Avamore, but on a public-private partnership, and they want to put in a tunnel underneath at the bottom of I guess the valley side of the Horseshoe Bend Hill. And
eliminate the light was the idea, right?
eventually, very soon, they'll actually eliminate that light. So I guess it would be a net zero if we put a light here, then we'd eliminate one at Avamore. I guess that'd be okay if we eliminated one light in the corridor and added another. But yeah, but that wouldn't do all their widening. They're going. We've started discussions with Avamore about the 1 mile widening they're going to do in front of their property there. But this initial project would be to just, and it's not a done deal. We've got to work. We're still working through, getting it a contract to do it. But that would just basically allow people to get off right there in the cloud, and then instead of using the roadway, they would go to a roundabout and then underneath and to the other side. Because as you can see, if you drive through there, I'm sure you all have recently, they're really starting to move dirt there, and they're going to start developing homes on the west side of the highway.
And along with that, as you get into Horseshoe Bend, I'm sure you've been through it, it's a logjam for pretty much the whole stretch of 35 to 25 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance in putting a line to start separating traffic at either end of Horseshoe Bend?
That's like either at the bottom of the hill or
some way to separate traffic, because a left-hand turn, because you're dealing with miles of traffic
sure.
on Friday night and Sunday trying to get out.
Well, the short answer is no, there is no plan for a light there. We do realize, and we've gotten more and more calls and inquiries about 52 and 55, the junction there at the top of the hill right there by the Chevron. But certainly that's why we want to get in there and start to study this corridor to see what solutions we could put in place. Our mission is safety. I'll come, hey sir, I'll come to you here next. You can bring in that wireless mic. But our mission is safety, mobility, and economic opportunity. Obviously, safety first and foremost, always. But mobility is important. We really want to limit how many signals we put on a state highway. That the purpose is to move it. But we also understand there's challenges, and there's places where the highway comes into conflict with access points. So to answer your question, no, there's no imminent plan. But we certainly know that that's on the radar now, and it seems like almost daily things come on our radar. When you've got 10 counties and you've got the most lane miles and the largest district in the state. But
and my last question is, how do we get this operation into the Horseshoe Bend High School so the locals there can come? I know there might be a few up here.
It's done. We'll do it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Right, Matt? Yeah, we have Mike will travel, no problem. We'll bring you with us, be part of the road show. You can sit right here, sir. You don't have to go anywhere.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Forrest, Andy Levine, father. My wife, Vondi, Randy and Vondi, live in Terrace Lakes. We bought our home there 20 years ago. We moved up here from, well, I don't want to tell you where we lived before we moved up here. But we moved up here, bought a home in Terrace Lakes, and we're going to stay up here until we die. The intersection that we're talking about, I'm not talking about the highway up to McCall or down to Boise. We're talking about the intersection there. We're talking about the intersection. That's a dangerous intersection. It's a dangerous intersection because people speed through that intersection. They speed both ways. They don't give a rat's rear end what you think, because you're trying to get on your way home or down to Boise. And it's dangerous. The way I see it is we need a light there, a traffic light that will, I don't care how much it costs, how many people have to die at that intersection before the cost of the traffic light is negligible. We need a light at that intersection, and I vote for that, and that's all I have to say. Unfortunately, I could go on a while, but I've said all I had to say. We need a light there.
Bob Seal, Garden Valley. Bob Seal, Garden Valley. First of all, thank you. This was encouraging. I was here a few years ago when the department was up here, and it really did look like the project was going to be death by study. So what you told us tonight sounds reasonable. It has a fiscal year tied to it, and I hope you're successful with your proposal. Thank you.
I was going to say it's a proposal, but thank you for saying it. And I do want to point out that we will continue to take interim measures. I mean, flagging, maybe an automated flagger. It's really not, I think it wouldn't help, it would only make it worse if we just put some sort of a signal configuration, you know, regular signal into the ground type configuration without widening. But I think we'll look into this automated flagging idea. We do see success compared to nothing with flagging. People don't like to wait 15 to 30 minutes, but that's a lot better than, the alternative. So I know that's not what you want to hear, but I don't know that it'll be improved too much even with a signal. However, it'll be reliable, and it'll always be there for you. Versus the times when there aren't flaggers there. So, go ahead, sir.
Hi there. My name is Ken Donnelly. I live here in Garden Valley, and I definitely understand the challenge of building in that location because of the intersection of rivers and the four-way intersection there. But I was wondering in the study, did they consider the amount of kind of chaotic parking in that area, the cars where they park on the way to turn to Garden Valley and at that business, and also how much it would help if they didn't encourage cars to go to the west side, if they were able to maybe develop a different spot for parking to encourage people to put in their boats and things down the river from that location to get it away from that tight spot.
I know the Forest Service that they are committed to serving voters at the current site. We've talked to them. I know that they say it's problematic, and it's noticed there at the parking on the southeast corner. Thinking though, if you're end up doing the bridge work, most of that, if not all, I don't see that surviving. The Forest Service also that had no communication that they were going to do anything about the Banks Cafe. That's Forest Service property because that's a rental for them. And that was one of the factors that kicked out the acceleration lane, left turn. Acceleration lane is that you'd be pushing a merge right in front of there. And I mean, this time of year, this evening when we came up, not bad. A lot of the rest of the summer, not so good. So that's why another thing that pushed us towards the traffic signal solution is that you would not have all that conflict between vehicles going on down there. But we worked with the Forest Service. They turned around and changed what they wanted to do. Yeah, that could change parking there, but they seem to, they are trying to think of ways to increase or reallocate parking at the boat put in, or the raft put in site.
Right. It seems like if that wreck site wasn't on the west side of the river there, that the traffic would be very minimal. There's not a lot of residences over there, and it's really not used as a freeway. But also, wasn't there a flat project for building a tunnel underneath where that beach is, just down the river? And would there be more room for parking like in that location where you might be able to somehow develop that instead and get away from the river intersection?
Could you please walk into the microphone some?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's better. Sorry.
I mean, I hadn't heard of a tunnel solution before. I know that we looked at a possibility of a tunnel, and a big wild card for us looking at it was looking at the geology of it, whether you could even put a tunnel and have it be stable enough. As we knew from Smith's Ferry, we've got a lot of decomposed granite, and once you start looking at it, it starts moving on you. So that was really a disincentive to want to touch the hillside.
Right.
Hopefully we minimally touch it only.
The place that I'm talking about is actually down the river towards Boise. There's that beach where there's a little development, there's a toilet building there.
Oh, the Banks Beach parking site, yeah.
Yeah, talked about putting a tunnel
We
there.
actually had a prior flat study on that, and the environmental just got finished up. We had actually put in for a grant flat when, January 22, I think. We did not get awarded. It came out to between 11 to 12 million, and statewide they had a total of 22 million. We thought they were going to open up a grant period this year. They still might, but which would have been due in December, but it looks like they're rolling that back a year. They've had a lot of cost increase, and I'm trying to think, they had 5 full projects financed and 6th one as a partial. So we're still trying to figure out how to get that financed. Forest Service is very interested in improving that site. The plan was to put a park, there used to be, I think, a 3-pad camping site, and it got closed in the 1980s when a camper got run over crossing 55 to go to the beach. So the plan is to take the parallel parking off 55, move it to a parking lot with a new 2-vault restroom there, and essentially put a, I didn't think of it as a tunnel, but it is a tunnel, a culvert going underneath the highway to the beach. So that's still active. Forest Service is very interested. It's just trying to get that funded. On 55 itself, we would look at putting left turn lanes in on it, so we'd have to widen the roadway there. But yeah, we're very interested in getting that done. Just 11 million, 12 million.
Right. Well, I was just wondering if that was a project that you were considering, if it kind of made sense to combine the two, if there was room for additional parking, and maybe remove the parking in this location that's hard to design around.
I'm thinking we had like 30 to 40 parking spaces, 3 of them with oversized vehicles, because we got the restrooms there, people want to stop there. So we thought that looking at the amount of cars that were there and the capacities, that 30 to 40 would probably work out. Yeah.
Okay.
We had money tomorrow. Like everything, you got to find it first.
Thanks, guys, for being here. In 1970, I worked as a mechanical engineer, so that was 54 years ago. And we were setting the stoplights in Menlo Park, California, and using a computer to do it. Now, 1970, there wasn't a personal computer. There was hardly a sensor that you could even know what traffic flow would be. With the cost now of control and monitoring components, I feel so sad that you're going to throw this very inexpensive smart stoplight away for a $40 million bridge. Your third con on slides for using stoplights was that in off-peak hours, we would be delayed there because the stoplight wouldn't be able to identify us needing to go through, and that just is not the case at all. Who did the study? Anyway, that's not my point. All I'm saying is I think it would be better to put this proposal together as a stoplight proposal, computerized smart stoplight, and second, the bridge improvement that needs to be done. So I second the young man's proposal up here in the front to give us a stoplight. Thank you.
And I think that's what we're proposing, and I want to just clarify what you said. The induced delay we talk about is delay to the highway, not delay from the local road onto the highway. essentially, we're delaying the trips now on the highway by putting in a signal. Right now, unless there's a flagger out there, the highway always moves.
Okay, I got one for you.
Go for it.
28, 29 sounds great. We all like the idea of a stoplight, but what about right now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's kind of my last comment. I mean, right now, we know that flagging will work for at least another 5 to 7 years. 28, 29 is about 5 years, about 4.5 to 5 years away. It would take a couple of seasons to build this. We would look at the potential for adaptive timing and some of those things, smart technology that you talked about, sir. But based on what we've studied, based on what we know from an engineering standpoint, if you just put a signal in there right now, the main problem would be that it would back. You'd have worse backups on the highway than you have right now. So you've got to create some ability to get people on and off the highway with turn lanes, left turn lanes, right turn lanes, and capacity as much as possible. So it also means you potentially widen Banks to Loman Road a little bit so you can get more storage capacity in there to get people off that road faster. So it's a complex, problem solved here. It's not as simple as we hope it is. It's, to put in a signal, we're looking at a potential for a signal on a state highway. It's maybe $1 to $2 million, but there's just so much more that goes into this because of the area and the context of this situation in this area. So.
Okay, here's my biggest concern, is getting ambulances and emergency personnel in and out until we get a light in there. Is there anything that can be done to help that? Because I know that guy's got to be fuming trying to figure out how to do that stuff.
I'm wondering if the Honorable Sheriff Turner wants to address that. I mean, is it a huge issue, Sheriff? Are you guys able to get down the road? I know that when there was that crash, the beginning of August, south of Banks, the one I was talking about waiting in earlier, it seemed like they were able to get through. They came along the other side of the road. Can you address that? The current situation?
Yeah, so, I mean, it is a huge issue. I mean, it's going to be an issue whether there's a light there or whether there's not a light there, just because of the volume of traffic. And so the direction for my guys, if there's a crash on 55, is we shut the highway down. So we can get emergency vehicles in and out. I mean, typically my guys are usually the first ones there, but the fire departments, they kind of follow the same suit. So we just take, the traffic flow into consideration, and we shut the highway down, we get emergency vehicles in and out, and then we'll open the highway again. I don't know if that answers your question, but the volume of traffic with a light or without a light is going to be the same. So we'll just maintain, keep it what we're doing. But the backup on 17 base home does present this issue of trying to get fire trucks and ambulance and my guys out to Highway 55. We have oncoming traffic turning on the base home from 55, and there's 4 miles of traffic backed up. And so I don't know if maybe the solution would be to put a turn lane in there in the meantime until there's a stoplight or something, just to create, like what you said, some volume and some room there.
I mean, that's something we can look into. I think, are you talking about a right turn lane, Scott, Sherry? Yeah.
Or a left turn lane on baseball and on 55.
Sure. Just to actually define that intersection a little better. Okay. Did our fair commissioners leave? No.
Tim Frisley from Garden Valley. Just quick comments here. The stoplight, you said you have to put in early warning, north and south, that people on the light's going to change. The early warning systems that I've seen there at Avamore and down at Dry Creek Ranch, that's just a to go, hit the gas. So every time we're coming down and stuff like that, the light starts flashing and stuff like that, everybody in front front of me, it takes off like a bat. So, you know, it's just not a viable solution. Whereas, I don't know if you've been into downtown Crouch, we had installed some radar control mile per hour signals and stuff like that. It's had a dramatic effect on slowing down traffic. It used to do anywhere between 35 to 45 miles an hour through downtown Crouch. The statistics show, I don't know if it plays here or not, that's been running all this, it works really well. So, congratulations to Bear Valley, they're doing phenomenal business. This summer, that place has been packed, like somebody else mentioned out there. Cars are parked all over the place. They're up and down 55. They're in the southeast corner. They're at the Banks Lumen Road. They're parking everywhere. And great. And that bridge is a one-lane bridge. And so people trying to turn left in that are blocked by people trying to get out. So if you take a look at this, putting in, instead of having an early warning system on the north and south 55, put in a programmable speed limit that says, hey, look at during non-peak hours, it's 55, during peak hours, slow it down to 35. Because that's a huge congested area from about, I would say half a mile north to over a mile south. And during the summertime, that thing is nothing but just one big congested parking lot and stuff like that, with people, especially coming from the north, anywhere between 65 to 70 miles an hour trying to get through there. So, and then finally, I'm not sure exactly how bad the bridges are, but it seems to me to be a lot cheaper to put in another single-lane bridge across the river to the ITD, so you have a one-way in and a one-way out with a left-hand turn lane. And then the smart signaling says, and I agree with this one guy, these new control systems and stuff like that are so programmable and stuff like that, you're not going to have off-peak delays and things like that, because you can just have the light that says, hey, look, we're going to, if somebody comes down the Banks Lumen Road, it turns on the signal. You don't have to have the time, so it's every 3 minutes or every 4 minutes or something like that. These things are really, really good, and I think you guys should know all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question on the, I think the stoplight and all of that is great. I'm a civil engineer too, but I know this is a nightmare. I've thought a lot about this, like what could possibly happen here. You guys definitely have your hands full in figuring out this challenge. But what I do want to ask is the question on flagging. Like flagging it's great, we need it every Sunday. That's what I would say, the increase needs to be every Sunday.
You mean every Sunday?
Every Sunday from Memorial, every Sunday from Memorial to Labor Day. And I don't know, how was last Sunday, team? I don't know how it was last Sunday. I would try to avoid, and I get really angry when I forget. So, but it does get back to my point is, when you guys aren't there flagging it, that is a great solution. Yes, we'll take the 15 to 30 minutes versus the 2 to 3 hours that's necessary to get out there, and then it's obviously safer. But as you know, being in the mountains, all of these roads coming down, if you're coming south on 55 or if you're on Banks Lumen, they back up for miles, and that's where your advanced warning comes into play, which is great that that's being considered for the traffic light. But what about now? Like, what do we do for that? Because that's where I think some of the rear-ending, if you're coming around the corner going 50 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you're going from 50 to 0 because traffic's backed up miles, how do we solve that? I don't know if there has to be something that can be done there, because that's where some serious accidents are going to start happening.
Well, and that's kind of what we talked about, the automated flagger. Is that potential, that would require some advance warning right away. So is that a better interim solution than flagging? Sometimes interim solutions are good because they can be the precursor to the final improvement, right? They can set people up and help change driver behavior before you get to that final improvement. And so that's definitely an option and something that we will look into, because it was a recommendation from the study that we could use automated flagging in the interim, which would probably include some advanced warning, and would, at least from an infrastructure standpoint, would be a better short-term improvement than just flagging. Although flagging, they do set up quite a bit of signage to go with the flagging operation in both directions. And, at this point, unless you recently moved here from somewhere else, maybe a state with a C.
Invite more.
Yeah. Then, I mean, driver expectation is pretty well solidified on that road because people know what to expect. They don't like it, but, you know, I mean, whatever we do, we need to make sure it meets drivers' expectations. So that's really important. But I haven't said it enough. Thank you. My answer.
If you have the automated flagging and you have the signal ahead, you can actually have it activate when you have essentially a red and you're flagging there. On manual, you can't do that, and that's been one of the problems, that you really have no advanced warning on a manual. But manual can, well, you'll still have a person with the automatic flagging, so you got to have eyes on it. I'm sort of a techno skeptic. It just, Ada County Highway District, they control the signal lights in the valley, and this last weekend, it always happens on a Saturday. There's no one making a left turn, but they read you. Somehow they aren't detecting the vehicles, the non-vehicles there, and they give you a red for a minute before they give you a green based upon the signal thinking there's a vehicle there and there really isn't. So, no, I know we've gone through in the valley a number of different technologies. They tried infrared, but if you had fog or rain, that didn't work, so the left turners didn't get anything. I think they've done some more on radar. I think that maybe is what they're using now. We've got our traffic engineers not here to answer that one. But it can be imperfect. You've got rain, snow, etc., to determine if there's a vehicle waiting for a signal. But that's more philosophical. But during the summer, you got the human being there. They should be able to pick out the greatest need and take care of that like our flaggers do now.
How far back from the sensor?
Oh, of course. I've never asked that. I mean, normally you just put it on the top of the signal mast and you're within 100 feet. What the real distance is, I don't know that answer.
Sorry, I guess that was my follow-up on that, is just how far, I mean, if we're backing up traffic for miles, how far back does it go so that you're not getting around the corner? Like, and even if you have the 501 camera is out in Vegas, so I don't know, like, line of sight. They're not going to have, if you have one person there, they're not going to have line of sight back to, you know, how many, 2 miles of backup on there. And so it's figuring out how far back those sensors can go. Can they go back a mile? Can they go back 2?
It wouldn't be the sensor go back. You'd probably have a cable or some other communication fiber going back to where your actual warning signal is. So you'd have your automated flagger, and that would send indications to however far up or downstream your signal ahead or stop ahead signs are, which would trigger it. Where you put those, typically you're going to put them wherever there's a curve, where if you're around the curve, you wouldn't see the stop vehicles. So you're not going to go back. I'm trying to think how far north that is. It's not going to be multiple miles, you're going to put it back. Pretty much if someone can put eyes on where the line is, and you wouldn't put a signal back that far, you'd put it closer in.
Hi, I'm Kevin, Democrat. Hey, part of our problem is the amount of traffic we have on the road. Is there any chance we could encourage the people from the Upper Valley, McCall, Cascade to go around through 95?
Turn this recording off now. Well, let's put it this way, my friend, the mayor of Payette, Craig Jensen, heard you say that right now, he'd say, are you kidding me? Because that road has seen a drastic, probably not to the level that 55 has seen, but they've already seen a huge increase starting, after COVID on 95, and it really started with Miss Berry when we had the road closed several times, which I know people in this community really liked. We can't do that again, but we know you like that. But really, both sides are busy. I will address. We had a question about what was once called the Indian Valley Expressway, from Emmett North, maybe up through, maybe head back to Donnelly. What's the name of that? What's the name of that road?
No business.
No, the one that goes from basically Midvale back over, or Midvale Hill back over to Donnelly. Oh, it'll come to me. But anyway, no, it'll come to me. There's a road that takes you, once you go through, and you can drive, actually, if you've ever done it, you can drive all the way from Emmett to Midvale Hill. And there's a road that splits you off to Midvale Hill, or you can go back and go over into Donnelly.
No business.
No business, that's it, no business road. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk of that. That idea's been around since 1937. There was a feasibility study last done in 1985. As a part of the original Garvey program, it was one of the main ideas that kind of, you know, kick-started that whole effort was to build a highway north of Emmett. We are talking internally right now if maybe we want to do another feasibility study. We do know that, you know, you're talking about 70 plus miles of road. There's a lot of challenges there, although it's a little different than this because it's through essentially, you know, it's not through it's through more of a desert climate versus, you know, mountainous climate. But you're talking about 10 plus figures. That's money starting with a B and not an M. So potentially at this rate, but is it worth looking into? I mean, we get more and more inquiries about it. I wonder if it's time to maybe take another look at it, just to really give people an answer on what the costs are. It would cost some money, but it might be worth it. So we're talking internally right now about what we want to study going forward, not just here in this area, but not in the 55 corridor, but across the Treasure Valley in our district. Where are the next roads? What's the next State Highway 16? Where do we need to expand or widen roadways, and where do we need to build new roadways? We're right on the precipice of opening in some new highways in the valley, State Highway 16, widening US 2026. We've done some winding work on State Highway 44, State Highway 55, south of Nampa is going to start some winding here pretty soon as well. We've done a lot of winding work on the interstate, and so what's next? And you know that there's a lot of credit that should be given to folks at the district like Mark and others years ago who did those studies that brought about the current roadways that are being built. And we realize now it's our challenge, it's our opportunity, it's really our privilege as state employees to try to figure out what the next set of roads are and try to get a little bit ahead of it. We do have more funding now than we've ever had, and eventually some of the bonding and things we're doing will turn over, and then a new set of major projects will come, and we want to be prepared for that. And that includes what we've talked about on State Highway 55.
My name is Bill Cook, and we've lived here since 2005. The flaggers, who's paying for those?
Comes out of Mark's salary? No, the state is, ITD is, yeah.
Okay, so if we would, until we get something permanent in there, if we would want flaggers during the summer every Sunday, would IDT or the state pay for that? And if they do, can we get that in writing?
I think we've continued to expand the number of Sundays that we flag, and I think I stated earlier that if we need to flag more Sundays, we will. We're already talking to members of the community about other days maybe we need to because of festivals or for whatever reason. You know, again, that's kind of one of the things with flaggers is you can be somewhat adaptable, and we just have to know though, because you can be adaptable on the ground, but we do need to know because it is an operation that you got to get set up, and you got to. I mean, that's a company, right? We don't ITD manages that. We have a couple of our employees there, but we bring in, you know, flaggers from an outside company.
Well, I understand that, but if we...
Your request is to...
More flaggers and more days, or more days of, or Sundays of flaggers, who's paying for it? Are we eventually going to be paying for it, the county here, or is the state paying for it? And if the state is paying for it, then I would like to see that in writing.
Well, we're already paying for all of it, and if we add days, I mean, we always welcome partnerships. I mean, if the county wants more days, they have specific days they want, we could continue to pay for it as well, but I don't know, I mean, if you want it, we would announce the days. That would be kind of in writing, right? Every year before the season starts, we announce all the days. If there are more days needed, then we need to have that conversation and we can accommodate that. But we do welcome partnerships. I mean, that makes things easier.
I just wanted to know if we end up paying for it eventually, or is somebody else going to chip in? Is it going to be the county, Boise County that's going to be paying for the extra flaggers for extra days? Or is the state going to say, okay, we're going to pay for it because we cannot get to this till 28, 29, and maybe it's done by 30, that's 6 years. Traffic is just going to get worse, so we might as well start planning that we need 4 days of flaggers.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, we started with 3, and we went to 8, and now we're at 10, and we've continued to pay for it, so. If you want to drop a contract.
But how many more days will you pay for the flagger?
I can't answer that question right now. I think we'd have to go back and talk about it and determine, you know, what we need, if the needs are there. Again, I mean, I started by saying we're open to listening to people and hearing what people have to say, and we basically increased from 8 to 10 because we heard about some additional need. And I mean, we're pretty much flagging almost the entire summer as it is. I mean, we started flagging on Father's Day, and I think we only missed 1 weekend between Father's Day and this last Labor Day. But
Okay, I have had...
and that does, hold on one second, that coincides, if you look at the traffic numbers, I mean, that's really, you know, really, the traffic picks up in mid-June and ends about this time every year. Slows back down.
Correct. So I have had people that have asked about a camera. So at this far corner right here, just a little past that, there's a corner that looks down or up the river, going, what is that, east, I guess. If they could see traffic, if they could get on an ITD website and look and see what the traffic looks like. It's not that far from electricity. You wouldn't have to go far with electricity because there's already flashing lights there. And then people could look and see, oh, we've got quite a backup. I could wait a couple hours. Just an idea. The other one is, have you ever watched a truck turn at that corner? It's pretty tough. Yeah, look at the guardrail. It was worse. In 2012, when they redid the bridge before, the guardrail stuck out there a lot further, and truck after truck after truck, semi-trucks trying to come up here and bring food and whatever else, pretty much destroyed the guardrail until they cut it back. What about, I know you're dealing with the Forest Service, but what about taking just part of that parking lot so that vehicles could turn easier in there, especially semi-trucks, so they don't have to take a 90-degree turn?
Well, that's going to be part of that preliminary engineering. I mean, what is the ground that we need? You know, what will we need for a wider bridge? I mean, frankly, a wider bridge would probably have to go to the east. It really couldn't go to the west into the river. So you're probably going to accomplish what you're talking about just by widening it out.
I'm not really talking about the bridge, though. I'm just talking about the parking lot where they let all voters park. Just that one little corner right there, so you're Semi-trucks trying to come up here and bring food. They catch that guardrail right there on the corner. That's a tough corner to turn.
Currently.
Turn lane?
No, you're talking about currently it's a tough.
Yes,
corner to turn.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's really difficult. That, not only is it slow traffic down, but I've seen a lot of truckers ruin their trucks doing that. Because they don't have enough room to swing wide to take that corner.
That could be fixed tomorrow.
Sounds like we need to talk with Forest Service. I can't say that they actually consider that a real parking lot. It's just roadside that's used. I might be wrong on that, but I've never heard them call it a parking lot. But yeah, this conversation, we need to talk to Forest Service, see what we can do.
I was just going to talk about the camera real quick. So there is a camera on the bake shed, and as you notice, it's not on. So when that camera's not on, that means our shed has no internet service, which they're having an incredible time trying to get internet service there. So it is something they're working on, because the guys would like to be able to jump on the internet and do their time cards and everything there. So it is something being worked out, and if they get that fixed, then that camera will hopefully be turned back on. And probably it's not the best angle, but maybe we can try and convince somebody to put some more elevation on it or something.
I heard Starlink. This is not an advertisement, but another maintenance shed, remote one elsewhere in the state, I can't say where, and our recent internal communications has started using Starlink successfully. And I would think that with that as a pilot test, that it might show up to the bank shed sooner than
The
later.
state also allocated a bunch of money through the broadband management on the backbone, straight up through here this last year. They're working with iron. It was state dollars. I was there.
Okay.
I know a guy.
Well, talk about, I mean, there is a program to bring broadband right down to 55.
Yep.
Yeah.
It comes
It's
right
not there
from
yet.
55 and all the way to Rachel.
We're good.
Yeah, I know we're heavy. But last couple of years, I know there've been broadband programs, and the state is committed to using our right-of-way adjacent to the state highways.
They're going to let me ask another question, I guess. So I was just trying to kind of brainstorm some simple solutions that would work in the near term. I know a lot of folks are throwing out the signal idea and things like that, and you guys mentioned like the high-tech equipment that can determine like what the traffic queue is and all that. I was wondering, would it be simpler to just reduce the speed limit on that whole stretch on those weekends, kind of like a school zone would be? Doesn't really affect the amount of time people wait if they're gonna just get there quicker and wait in line anyway. To me, the safety and the inconvenience work hand in hand. Even when it's running smoothly, it's a big delay, but when there's an accident on the road, then it really throws things out of whack. So trying to think of how you might improve the safety part of it.
I'll let Mark have this conversation. My quick answer to the speed is that we could look into the potential to lower the speed, but the problem, one of the main issues with what you see here is actually a downstream issue. It's called platooning. And a lot of times what happens is, in this case, you come down Horseshoe Bend Hill, and when you make that merge there, and then it stops to 25 miles, or excuse me, 25 miles an hour through town, people get closer together, right? It just brings people together like an accordion. And as we continue to see growth, then the platoons get larger and larger. So you could slow cars down, but they would still be in that platoon. They would still come through there at a slower speed, closer together. We could look at speed a lot. There's been some really good ideas here today. Some good interim solutions. It's clear that we probably need to, come back and talk quickly about some interim solutions. We've talked about the automated flagging. I think that's something we can certainly look into along with the long-term improvement there. But I don't want to just shoot it down, but it's something we can talk to our traffic engineer about that idea. But I do know that one of the issues you face all the way up here is the platooning that's caused by that accordion effect that happens when people merge and then slow down through Horseshoe Bend coming north. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I guess the difference in my mind is these people are stopped at the intersection instead of slowing down. But I do see some negatives to it also, like that road is designed for 50 miles an hour, so if we did put a speed limit that was lower, would people try to pass in those areas and cause an accident that way? If you could control that part of it. I was just wondering, because it doesn't seem like it would affect people's trip down there very much. It's only 14 miles down that stretch, so going 35 miles an hour versus 50 isn't going to be that much of it, especially if you're going to be waiting in line anyway. And I'm only talking like just have it on the weekends. Or
like a variable speed.
Yeah, the school zone.
We can look at variable speed. I mean, you use them in places. We're talking about doing an
Advisory speed right now on Eagle Road through Boise. Anybody else? Come on, son.
Could you explain
Yeah, it's time.
I'm Lisa Willie, I live here too. So one question, I saw on Boise County Sheriff's Department Facebook page, I think it's Roby Creek, correct me if I'm wrong, huge issue with parking, and this is having to do with that intersection and the crazy parking we see. I think they've said now that if your tires are on the pavement, you're getting a ticket. Is that accurate?
Yes, and we're working on the same thing for advance.
Okay, that was my first suggestion, is start getting people to follow some rules, but you have to have rules first. And then my second thing is when you're talking about stop lanes and you're impeding traffic, the goal isn't to have 17 miles of backup every direction, it's to allow that zippering, merging everybody, being able to get in, right? I mean, really that's kind of part of it. So in large cities, Southern California, I think, big cities, on your on-ramps to the freeway, you have traffic lights that, turn on, let a certain number of people through, turn off, blah, 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 and they only work during peak traffic hours. What is it called?
Ramp
yeah, is something like that, is a system like that possibly doable, so that way it's kind of keeping traffic flowing, but not, because it is hard. I mean, I was pulling hay on a flatbed trailer and came into Horseshoe Bend, around the corner where the last runaway truck ramp is, everybody's going 60 miles an hour, and then there was dead stop traffic. And there's nothing that's going to tell you that that's happening. You couldn't see it, it's hidden by the hill. But that's what we need to avoid, because we might solve the problem one way, but then have tons of fender benders because of these unexpected stops. I know I threw a lot at it.
I'm thinking that there are many periods, even with a lot of traffic, there are many periods where there is less traffic. And what you don't want to do is slow down traffic when it doesn't need to slow down. I guess that's where you have variable speed limits, etc. So, but however, ramp metering is meant to stop and go. And I don't think we want to do stop and go on the state highway if you don't have to. And we'd mentioned before that if you have, during off seasons, just make it flashing yellow, flashing red. If you don't need to stop people. Because there are plenty of times that come up, for state work, come up not when it's busy. So I can see that I've driven through Banks Sloman intersection during those times, and Car stops at the stop sign, left turn in 5 seconds later, and it's just, the volumes are so low. So that's the difficulty that we're gonna have to work through, is get the control when you need the control, but don't stop people if you don't need to stop them. Because in the end, people will be tempted just to go right through the light.
Anybody else?
And that's been one of the challenges for ITD on this opportunity issue for years, is that really what you're looking at is a handful of days where you really have the problem, right? I mean, certainly it's not, none of you like this issue. That happens during the summer, but you don't face this most of the rest of the year. And so that's the challenge, right? Because it's a pretty big solution or improvement for a problem that only happens, you know, a handful of days a year. So, I mean, that's definitely something that we grapple with when we make decisions, you know, those factors like that.
So my question on what you just said is, how much does it cost for the lighting, the light part, and how much does it cost for the bridge replacement? Because eventually you're going to have to replace the bridges anyway, because you say they're so bad. So whatever we do, the bridges need to be replaced. So how much does that cost, and how much is the light?
Sure. So a really rough estimate of the bridges, which I worked with our bridge, you know, we worked with our bridge team recently to put this together. You know, 5-lane bridge, you're talking about probably, you know, 274 feet to, what, 70-something feet wide. You're talking about $16 to $17 million. And then the local bridge is about $3 million. So you're talking about somewhere between $18 to $20 million for the two bridges, which are, you know, pretty good cost. I think one's like 600 or something square foot, and I forget the other square footage cost, but and then, you know, the signal itself, I mean, the mast arms, you know, all that, probably about $1 million. The roadway improvements will be expensive, but a lot of it depends on what needs to be done with the mountain on the south and northeast side of the bridge. Those costs are expensive. Moving dirt, hauling dirt, you know, the blasting potentially could, you know, is a big portion. The widening, right? The widening piece of this, you know, that's a bit of a wild card. But based on recent projects, we estimated that to be about $20 million.
So basically half would then be...
Yeah, half and half, 50-50.
Would be because of the traffic issues. The other half is something that needs to be done anyway, that's the bridge and stuff, that needed to be done anyway, because you guys say it's so bad. That they need to be replaced, so it doesn't matter if we do lights or roundabout or whatever we would do, the bridge would always need to be replaced. So we should take that out of the whole picture, that amount, and then we can see what's left over on this project, the lights area.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I just want to mention something you said there. Those bridges they get inspected every 2 years. Those are good bridges. They work. There is some scouring, you know, on the piers, but the bridges themselves, the decks are in good condition. But they are over almost 70 years old, and they are at the point where, you know, they'll need to be programmed for replacement.
The small bridge that goes over the North Fork, who would pay for that? Boise County or ITD? That goes up Banks Grade?
I mean, right now we're planning to fix it. I mean, that's the idea behind it. It'd be one big package.
Anybody else?
What are you going to do with traffic once you got that?
No. Again, we have to go to our board, and they may say different. They may have some different thoughts, but.
Question is, I mean, we've been replacing bridges by putting the new span in demolishing the old one and then filling in that area. We did that for Horseshoe Bend, I believe, and for Cascade, so.
You don't see that it can be really crazy there. I mean, there's still the traffic flow there.
Oh yeah, you can't stop traffic there, and actually for the 55 bridge, I believe the prior bridge was to the east of where the current bridge is, so we've got, if you go out and walk it, you can see where it was flattened out where the prior bridge went in. So, I mean, that's almost like prepared ground for additional work.
I'm Lori Grandemeyer from Garden Valley. You know, I drive from Cuna up to Moscow all the time. I have grandkids up north and grandkids down south. So I'm on 55 and 95 all the time. And you're talking about a handful, you said a handful of weekends or a handful of days that the traffic is backed up. That handful is growing immensely and it's dangerous. The traffic coming down, when you're coming down from 55, that is so windy. How you could drive 50 miles an hour on that is totally beyond me. I go faster than most. I don't go that fast. I'd be in the river. Same way when you're coming from the south up north, that you have all that congestion there at the beach. You have the pullover lane that nobody uses. You know, as soon as they see a pullover lane, they go really fast. And the rest of the time they're driving at 35 miles an hour. So I guess the concern I have is that we need to look at the safety of the road. It's too fast, too many people. The infrastructure was never designed for this. I know that's a big problem for you guys, but it's also a safety problem. I don't want to get killed trying to see my grandkids. I don't want to get killed or have my grandkids getting killed coming to see me. I don't want to be the grandmother that's driving her 14-year-old grandson down to Boise from McCall and having him get killed on that road. It's real, it's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. I don't care how much it costs. We pay taxes, and they seem to go up every year. I see all the improvement in the valley. We lived in the valley for years, and I've seen it improve, and yes, it needs to be improved. But all those people from the valley are coming up here, and they're on the road. We need to do something. So, that's all.
Thank you.
Just for a point about the handful of days, those handful of days, I've got 4 sets of kids in Treasure Valley who haven't come and seen us except once a year for the last 3 years because it's an hour and a half to 2 hour wait to get through the stoplight. They only have weekends to come visit us. They can't come during the week. So that point that you made about this only being a handful of days, those are really important handful of days, and that's really a big impact on our family.
Thank you. That's good.
And I don't mean to say that, I don't mean that flippantly, like it's just a handful of days. Trust me, number one, our families drive this road. I drive this road all the time with my boys. You know, we have workers, maintenance operators that live in your communities here and work here. And they care about the quality of this road as much as anybody here. So we do take safety very seriously. And when it comes to making transportation decisions, though, that is something that we have to look at, right? Because we have priorities that we have to look at all across our district, and the state has its priorities all, you know, across the state. We have 6 transportation districts. We're one of 6. And we feel like we're the best, we're the biggest, but, just a joke from my other buddies at the other districts, but I mean, those are things we think about when we make these decisions. And we don't take any of this lightly. We take all this very seriously. And I hear what you're saying. And I'm glad we have people in this state that care as much as they do. We're here right now because we care too. We do this job because we do want to work for the people of this state. And, but it's never easy. They're never easy decisions, and you know, we do the best we can, and the data that we have and the information that we have to make the decisions on where to allocate our funds. And but I hear what you're saying. I appreciate all your comments. We appreciate all your comments.
So can I say thank you to you guys, because it really does seem like at least you're trying to listen and trying to do something. And we understand that it's not just you three, because I'm sure if it was, you'd do something right now. But we do I know we have to deal with a lot of other people in there, so we do thank you for coming and listening and talking. Anybody else have anything?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I live in Garden Valley. I wanted to thank you all. Two things, probably really obvious, but whatever solutions you come up with, especially with respect to lights or flagging or whatever, I would just ask that they be very flexible so that you're not locked into one particular solution if that solution isn't ideal or turns out to be not ideal or you didn't predict or something. So whatever technology that would take, I would suggest think about that. And then the other thing is, I am not making a plug for Starlink because I did everything I could to avoid it when we moved up here, but it turned out to be the only solution for us. But the cool thing about it is, if you end up getting broadband and it actually works and all that stuff, you can always turn off the Starlink and use your broadband. So that would, and it's not that expensive for a location. So you might want to consider that, because I think that camera idea is very, very good because people can plan better. That's it. Thank you.
I do need to address that we do have hot dogs over here for sale. They're $5 a piece from the Boise County Republicans. If anybody's hungry, I think she's got hot dogs left and they'd like to get rid of them.